Good evening. Welcome back to the 2014-15 school year. This is our first regular board meeting of the academic year for this year. And to get things started, first I would like to tell you that we've just come back from closed session. And by a unanimous vote, we approved a resignation agreement for certificated employee number 121824. So that was the only action that was taken in closed session. And now moving into convening our open session, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be led by John Stark.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Allaby to say a few words about John.
Thank you. John Stark is a sixth grader at Kennedy Elementary. He is an upstanding student with amazing grades, always willing to go the extra mile to help other students. He is involved in Boy Scouts and has been since he was 5, hence the uniform, right? He plays baseball for Orange Crest and made the all-star team. He plays almost all of the positions. In one game, he actually did play all of the positions. He attends church in Fontana and enjoys camping and archery. And John, I have a certificate I'd like to award you. Very nice of you. You're an outstanding person.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have any photographers? Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salvi. And John, would you like to tell us who's in the audience with you? It looks like there's some special guests that came along with you here tonight.
This is my dad, my mom, John, Liz, my brother Luke, my principal, Mrs. Betts, and my assistant principal, Mrs. Baker.
Welcome, Mom and Dad. And thank you for sharing your son and your time with us tonight. And you're invited to stay for the board meeting, but you can also go home if you need to. So we wouldn't be offended. Thank you. All right. Moving on along our agenda. Let's see. We come to the Superintendents Report. So I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mrs. Lockdawson. And John, again, thank you for being here this evening with your parents. Well done. Congratulations. It's always nice to see a Boy Scout in uniform. As a former Boy Scout myself, I like that. So well done, John. Let us know when you get your Eagle Scout, okay? All right. Thumbs up. Well, good evening. It's nice to be here with everybody, with the board and the audience that's here. It's been a successful week of school. Of course, you know that we opened school last Monday, and 45,000 students have found seats, and they're back in our schools, in the hallways, and so it's been a really wonderful week. From my perspective, for the 26th year of opening school, it's one of the smoothest I've ever been a part of. Certainly the central office, and to have a chance to go out and visit the schools and receive the phone calls and to talk to neighbors and things such as that, and to hear around the dinner table with my own 2 kids as they started high school and intermediate school. It's been a wonderful week. And later on in my report, Mrs. Lynn Carmonday is going to talk a little bit more about that. One thing I'd like to share with the board, and I know we've talked about it briefly, but this, the 4th, is that's Wednesday, isn't it? Thursday. Today's Tuesday. It's not Monday, is it? Still on Monday. On this Thursday, the 4th, our state superintendent of education, Mr. Tom Torlickson, is going to be here visiting our area. And in working with him, we have, he wants to visit a school site, and we've selected to go to Poly High School to visit. Ken Young, who is organizing this event, is part of this, of course. And at 1 o'clock, we'll be there, walking classrooms and things such as that. a small group with Mr. Torlickson, and then starting at 2 o'clock in the Poly Gym is going to be a town hall meeting. As board members, you're certainly encouraged to be there. I know that Mrs. Locke Dawson is going to have a part of the program and have a chance to speak, as well as I am. And we're looking forward to show and telling Riverside Unified, show and telling Poly High School, of course, and just all the great work that's happening here in this great city and the district. And it's good to have him in our midst. And also Assemblyman Jose Medina will also be part of that, and he'll be there. Not to confuse this, because he's on a tour. We're not the only district he's visiting. He's visiting a few other schools in the city that day. But that evening, I know that I sent this flyer to the board. There's also a second town hall meeting at the county office that evening from 5 to 6:30. Now, this one is going to also include Congressman Mark Tucano. So we have our own town hall meeting at Poly High School at 2, and at 5 o'clock that evening with Congressman Tucano and Tom Torlickson at the county office, and certainly invited to be there as well. So that's an exciting event. I'm really happy to have been part of the Eastside Reconciliation Coalition. I want to thank the principals that were part of that too in the Eastside, because last Monday and then last Saturday I had a chance to participate in the Stop the Violence, where the community, the neighborhoods came together on Saturday. There was a walk. It ended at Bobby Bonds Park. I had a chance to be there for a couple of hours in the different booths that were set up and reconnect with former students who are now parents that have kids in high school, to connect with longtime members of the community. It was really nice. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me, certainly our priority as superintendent and as the school district, kids first. And this is all about the kids' safety as they come to and from school, as we have community walking, like a walking school bus, if you will, from corner to corner, and the cars driving the neighborhood with the magnetic placard on the side of their car talking about that safety. So it did remind me about kids first. Kids have a voice, you know, and certainly the community has a voice to represent perhaps those that may not have a voice, and to come together last Monday evening at the Seventh-day Adventist Church with the principals and have a chance to address the community, to be back with them on Saturday. It really was very much service-oriented. It was driven by the community, by the students, and it's important for others in the future to participate in those kind of events, because this is just the first of many. But it was really good to be part of that on last Saturday as well as last Monday. And kudos to Reverend John Harris and all the pastors on the East Side that organized this. It's the East Side Reconciliation Coalition in conjunction with the think tank in East Side. Great people I've started to make relationships with and connections with, and will continue to do that throughout the school year as they work towards stopping the violence. The next thing that I'd like to briefly report on, actually I'd like to invite Mrs. Lynn Carmody to come up and talk to you about the opening of school. And we've invited 3 principals, 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school, to come and share with the board about their experiences opening school this last week.
Prior to that, though, I'd like to highlight a couple of other things. One, in your board mail-out, you saw the increase in students that received FAFSA. Last year, a 34% increase, over $400,000 more dollars to help support our students as we have prepared them for college career. And so I thought that was pretty exciting, and I wanted to highlight that in front of you today, as well as the fact that as we are preparing our students for college career in the world, that we have another elementary school that has become an AVID school. So that's our 12th. That's George Washington Elementary School. We processed over 6,500 transfers before the opening of school, which I think is amazing. Also, I wanted to give you a brief update on STEM, a couple components of it. One, the work that's being done at the STEM Academy, and that discussion that's taking place led by the principal, Dale Moore, and next steps, as well as a discussion in depth that's taking place in instructional services and with the lead of Assistant Superintendent Antonio Garcia, to develop that 5-year plan that we made reference to the last time we opened the board meeting and had a presentation from the STEM committee. So that work is continuing, and I wanted to let you know that we're looking forward to a November board study session regarding that work. district-wide overall, and then also at the STEM Academy. Now the exciting piece, opening the school year. Prior to that, we trained every single teacher in the implementation of Common Core standards, preparing our students for the 21st century and the global world that awaits them. You'll see scrolling through the screen above that we had so many teachers who participated, teacher leaders, our instructional services specialists, and many people who trained. It's an awesome event when that many professionals can come together. I personally got the opportunity to go to multiple sites, one of which was secondary math, and I was really impressed with the work that they were doing. I've been to a lot of conferences, actually even out of the state, where I have not seen some of the expertise that I witnessed that day. And on the second day, any questions or comments, they had researched the night before and were presenting at the opening of that meeting. So I thought that that was pretty special. You'll also see some photos with respect to some of the training that took place. In the mail-out, you got some information about the data on the PD and how the teachers who received the professional development felt a great deal of satisfaction and preparation for the upcoming school year as far as materials and curriculum goes. The English Language Arts teachers received the units of study that were developed the first, and that work is ongoing. There's also more work to be done, of course, and we are looking forward to next steps in the instructional services specialists with Assistant Superintendent Judy Paredes have already started that conversation. At this time, I'm going to invite the most exciting piece beyond the professional development, of course, is the students actually coming to us and the families sending their students to us with the expectation that we're going to educate them and prepare them for their futures. So I want to call up Shawnee Dahl from Fremont, Coleman Kells from University, and Betsy Schmuckel from Arlington, who are going to share the exciting openings at their particular sites. Thanks so much.
Good evening, Dr. Hanson, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on your behalf about the opening of the school year at Fremont Elementary School. Our school year last Monday got off to a fabulous start at Fremont Elementary School. The day before school starts is always fraught with energy and enthusiasm and eagerness for what lies ahead, and this year was no different. Before school started that morning at about 7:30, I saw many throngs of teachers and parents and students outside the front. They were getting to know where they were going to go, and lots of, yeah, I got that person, and ooh, I got that person. The students were just thrilled with their teachers. And the teachers, armed with all the PD from Common Core, were thrilled to be greeting their students as well. And I was just happy to be meeting 545 new students that I haven't met before. And as we went through the day, it just got better and better. Students were excited to get textbooks, excited to learn procedures and routines. And the best sight for me are the kinders at the salad bar, because they get salad bar and they can feast on a hot lunch. So it was an amazing first day to what I know is going to be a tremendous 2014-15 school year. And we were lucky to have lots of support from our USD at our school site. Patty DeRobles was phenomenal in stopping by and helping with parents and getting kids where they belong. And the school looked beautiful, felt beautiful, and we're going to have a tremendous school year. Thank you.
Thank you.
At University Heights Middle School, I guess the best way to start with things is middle school kids have endless, boundless energy. And it's omnidirectional, and it's 24/7. So our job is to try and have a little bit of directionality for all that energy. Now, we started on the 22nd, all the middle schools do, with just the 7th graders, so we can make sure they know where to eat lunch, where to go to the bathroom, all the good places to go, and make sure they have a good opening. And then on Monday, all the students came. Now, we We do something a little different at University Heights Middle School. The first 2 weeks we work with UCR, and every single school kid on campus goes to UCR, does a tour, does events over there with team building and learning about what university life may be. At the same time, our teachers work in groups that are not traditional, and with the students in 3 large groups, going over technology, going over what we're doing as professional, or what we're doing with them is studying our theme for the year, which this year is PBIS, and making sure they understand all the things that are in common throughout the school. So it's a pretty exciting thing, getting 400 kids off to UCR every morning and having the rest of the kids working, and it's going great, and they're very excited. And they accidentally get a lot of PE. And the other thing that they go when they're there is on the ropes courses, and so they challenge themselves, and it's a very exciting couple weeks. So we've had a good start of the year, and we're excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coates.
Can you tell me what PBIS is?
I could if I thought about it for a second, but Positive Behavior Intervention System.
Thank you.
So it's a school-wide system to make sure that we are all able to have a culture at our school site that works for everyone, and so we teach it to everyone so that we can all put our focus on the academics.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hello, good evening. We also had a great opening to the school year at Arlington High, and as I was preparing these slides, the theme emerged in my mind about one theme, which is your LCAP dollars at work. As you watch these, you will see some of the concrete and specific ways that LCAP is already having a significant impact on the students at Arlington High School. There's our ASB students greeting every student on campus with a reception line that was quite lively. Our ASB students are receiving increased support because we have additional time for our ASB directors. We're promoting their participation in additional activities. Here they are, our ASB students, passing out schedules for the students on the very first day. In the slides, you'll also see our football players in their brand new uniforms, which are beautiful, and they were able to get, for every freshman, JV, and varsity player, home games uniforms and away games uniforms out of their LCAP dollars. We also are looking at replacing our choir robes and dresses and our band uniforms. The choir robes were purchased in the last century. Not that they're threadbare or anything like that, but we really are so thrilled to be having that kind of pride and joy in the outfits and so forth. We started a brand new credit recovery program using an online program. We're in collaboration with EOC and with Ramona High School's fabulous Debbie Parr has been collaborating with our teacher and teachers at the other high schools to put together a very dynamic credit recovery program paid for with our LCAP dollars. So I couldn't be more thrilled. We were able to reinstate our regular ed Read 180 program so that the most struggling students in reading in our school are receiving that support that they so desperately need. So I just thought I'd highlight that. There's our teachers starting their weekly collaboration up there. They already are hard at it and having a great time and a good start to the year. So we couldn't be happier.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy, and to Shawnee and to Coleman and to all 50-plus principals, because this is just 3 of the stories that happened across the district as a cabinet. We had to go out and visit, where we had the privilege to go out and visit all of the schools. And again, as I mentioned, from my perspective, in the 26 years of opening schools, this has been a very smooth, positive, a lively opening. I'm grateful to all of the many hours that the principals and their teams put together. And again, that theme really is kids first. It's all about the kids and helping focus on the whole child, the emotional, the social, the academic, and finding them that environment which our schools are doing. The last 2 things from my report, and I'll be done, is this evening we learned that we're going to have some Riverside Unified students on America's Got Talent. Maybe you've heard about that. A group of gymnasts, and it's at 9:00 p.m. I believe they represent King High School, and some from Pauley, and some from Gage, and some from other schools. And so if you turn on to America's Got Talent this evening at 9, you can see that Riverside has talent and Riverside Unified, and so we're happy about that. And last but certainly not least, and he did not want me to do this, but I twisted his arm and I said, I'm going to anyway, but John Schreck, congratulations to John. He has accepted a new position to go serve, similar to what he does, in the Santa Ana Unified School District. So certainly we're going to miss John, the many years of service that he has given in an intimate way, not just in the district, but throughout the city. And so as he goes down, lucky for Santa Ana to do the same thing that he's done down there, we're going to miss him. And I know that John's back in that room hiding, and he said he was going to turn the volume off on me when I started doing this. But John, we're grateful to you and your leadership and all the things that you've done for Riverside over the years, and we wish you the best of luck, and you will be missed. That's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hansen. We've come to the part of our agenda where we ask for public input on items that are not on the agenda. So if you have something to speak to that's not on the agenda, you should have filled out a card and handed it in. This is the time to do that, and I don't have any cards, so I am going to assume we have no public input. So I'll be moving on to our next section. We've got our district employee group reports. First up would be Mr. Daniel Rudd from our CSEA Chapter 506. Mr. Rudd, please come forward. Good to see you.
Good to be seen. CSEA had their conference in Sacramento on August 7th to the 3rd to the 7th, and during that time we changed some of our resolutions. A lot of it dealt mostly with our retiree committees, because next year is when we're going to be doing state officers, so this year was kind of slow here. Our keynote speakers were Jerry Brown and Lieutenant Governor Newsom, and they did a really good one. They did really good. And then we had a keynote speaker. His name was Alex Sheen. He was the one that came up with the Because I Said So campaign. And my recommendation, if you guys can get him to speak for you, he'd be great at any of the high school. He's awesome. Everybody was really moved by him. Our education days were safety trainings, maintenance and operation trainings, Common Core trainings, and LCAP trainings for the special ed people that were going to be doing their stuff, safety trainings for the campus aides, pre-retirement trainings. And we only had one casualty this year, thank God. One of our members broke her arm on the last day. She's okay. And we had the problem of getting some medical help to see who was going to be able to pay for it. And our technicians, our workman comp technicians from here, Jenna Rocha and Vicky Ortiz, handled everything for her, so she's taken care of. Okay. They're awesome. In September 10th, next week, we're going to be having a Welcome Back to Classified Employees get-together at the Nutrition Center from 5 to 7. I've already invited Dr. Hansen, and if any of the board members would like to show up and say hello.
What's the date on it?
The 10th.
Okay, thank you.
At the Nutrition Center. And on September 17th, we're going to have our first chapter meeting of the school year, and we're going to be voting on rewarding of positions and our chapter constitution. And we still have ongoing negotiations with the district for other stuff going on right now. And upcoming in the near future, we're going to be having new training for our site reps, our Know Your Rights training, and we're going to have training for our union steward trainings. Hopefully our chief union steward will be there to help them out. Because this year we upped our union steward trainings, our trainers. We got 3 more trained this year, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get at least 3 this year coming up. And they were newly jacketed, and they represented the district really well. We even had our 3rd vice president, David Tovar, speak in front of 1,800 people, and he never did that. So it was really good. And that concludes the CSE for this month.
Thank you, Mr. Rudd. I appreciate it. Welcome back to the new school year. Up next, somebody we haven't seen in a while. Mrs. Page, come on down. I've missed your bling. Welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you, and good evening. I wanted to apologize for the last meeting, the mess up. It was still summer in my mind, so I do apologize for missing that last meeting. But we've already been busy. We're up and running. We had a training August 12th, and Dr. Hansen came and he did a meet and greet with all of our units, and it was just really nice for them to meet you and ask you questions, so we thank you for coming. We also had training. We had over 100 people come on August 12th, so it's still summer, to our training, so we were really excited to start off our school year. We also gave them directories, and you should have one at your thing. We kind of condensed it this year. I like it because it fits in my purse, but that's just me. So we're off and going. The other thing we're doing is membership. Of course, we're kicking off membership, so I would encourage you all to join PTA, whether it's your school site or any school site. I do have some envelopes if you'd like those. Also wanted to announce I only have one school that's already did 100% teachers, and that's Patricia Beatty. So I know other schools are closed, but they're the very first one, so it's exciting. I also wanted to let you know that Sherman Oaks High School has requested to charter PTSA. I got that information from our 23rd District President, so when I get more information, I will share that with you, but it's exciting because we hadn't had them before. Also, I have been meeting with Gloria Cowder and Susanna Zamudio, along with Tammy Blackmore. We've had a couple meetings about School Family Community Partnership Plan, which addresses the Need 6 in the LCAP plan, and they have been working so hard. It's exciting to see all the new plans that they have come up with, and I can't wait for them to come out. I call this one of the perks of being a council, because I can see district employees, besides my teachers on my school site, how excited they are and how much they care about the students. So it just makes you feel happy that you're here in Riverside. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about Earhart PTSA. They took time out of their busy schedules with registration and spirit wear and all those things. And there was an 8th grader at Earhart that had a brain tumor, and she's had surgery. I don't know if you've heard of her, Celeste Alvarez. And they took pictures and cards and videos of the students. They worked alongside with ASB, so when she came home, that filled her room. Just people that care, so just wanted to say that. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need an envelope.
Oh, I have it. You always join every year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Our next section is our consent calendar, and this is our part of the agenda which we take all of our routine items as a block. Mr. Hunt?
I would move to approve the consent calendar as presented by the staff.
Okay.
I would second, with a recognition that we're losing some great folks that are going on to other places. So with that, I would second.
All right. Mrs. Cloud. Mr. Hunt made the motion. Mrs. Cloud seconds to approve consent. Please vote. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. That item carries. Moving on to our action item. Right? Was that? Yeah, we didn't have anything before then. I think we've got Tim Walker coming up to discuss changes in the bylaws of our Special Education Community Advisory Committee.
Dr. Hansen, good evening. Madam President, member of the board. Before you tonight, presented for your approval, is the action item for the revision of the bylaws of the Community Advisory Committee for the Riverside Unified School District Special Education Local Plan Area. As part of the agenda, there's a small, short PowerPoint presentation. I'll walk you through some of the highlights of that particular presentation. Provided for clarification. Under legislative mandates, CSEs provide for a vehicle for active community involvement in the identified areas. Per the Education Code, a CAC shall be established for every SELPA in the state of California. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act documents the intent to involve parents of students with disabilities. The legislative intent in creating CACs is to establish a local forum for the active involvement of parents. The CAC members are appointed by you, the governing board of RUSD, and they function in an advisory capacity. Per the Education Code, CAC membership shall be composed of, among other groups, parents of students with disabilities and parents of other students enrolled in schools. At this point, it's my pleasure this evening to present and share with you some of the members of our CAC. Mrs. Aurora Sanchez is our CAC chairperson. If she'll stand up, please. And Aurora, if you'll stay standing, all other members of the CAC, if you'll stand and be recognized, please. Thank you for your involvement. From the district office, we have a liaison, program specialist, Natanya Johnson, who is the district liaison to the CAC, and our new assistant director, Carrie Antrim, is here this evening. And Carrie will be attending all meetings of the CAC, providing additional support, guidance, and involvement in communications and also activities. Let's move on. So this is other groups that would be members on the CAC. In California, special education programs are provided under a SELPA, or Special Education Local Plan Area, local plan, and the plan is approved by the school board. The local plan describes the RUSD policies, procedures, and programs that are consistent with state and federal laws and regulations. And the bylaws of the CAC are documented in the RUSD local plan. In collaboration, revision of the CAC bylaws began in April of 2014. And in May, the first draft of the proposed revisions of the CAC bylaws were reviewed by the Executive Committee and the District Liaison. On June the 10th, 2014, the CAC bylaws were revised and approved by the CAC Executive Board. The bylaws of the CAC have not been updated since 1980. The revisions are primarily related to the formatting as well as clarifying for the role of the CAC. The revisions also include expanded language related to membership, meetings, and subcommittees. With this, I ask that the Board of Education take action on the revised CAC bylaws. Should you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them at this time.
We do have a couple of questions, comments from the board. Mr. Hunt?
I don't really have a question. I do commend our staff for working with this group, but I'll be prepared to make a motion after the questions.
Okay. Mrs. Cloud?
And I would be happy to second. And I would say thank you for doing your hard work, because 1980 is a long time to not have had the bylaws revised. So thank you for your staff and the parents that are involved with this.
Then I would move the item as presented by Mr. Walker with commendation to the staff to move forward with this fine group of parents that we know will be very helpful to our understanding of this challenging issue.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Mrs. Cloud to approve the changes. Please vote when you get a blinking light. There we go. Alrighty, motion carries. Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Walker. Item E2 on our agenda is a discussion of the compensation agreements for various properties. Mr. Fine, welcome to the podium.
Thank you. Good evening, Mrs. Lock-Dawson, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. The item that's before you, John, we're on the wrong. There we go. Thank you. The item that's before you is a unique item that really is the result of the process to unwind redevelopment agencies across California. And in simple terms, many redevelopment agencies owned property when redevelopment was, that ability to have redevelopment agencies locally was taken away. Riverside's redevelopment agency was no different, and so many of the properties that it owned at the time of the state action reverted to a successor agency. And it's the role of that successor agency, they have many roles, but one of their roles is to dispose of any property holdings. And so in this particular case, there are 3 properties out of many properties that the successor agency now controls. There are 3 properties that have historical significance in Riverside, for which there are ongoing discussions with developers at various stages of the development process that would preserve or otherwise use these properties in a way that would be beneficial to our community. Those 3 properties are the Statler building at 7th and Market, or Mission Inn and Market, the Imperial Hardware building on the Main Street Mall, and the Farmhouse Hotel on University just below Iowa. In each of those cases, the city's engaged with various developers on moving those projects forward in some way or another. But in order for that to ultimately come together, it's necessary for the properties to be transferred back to the city, or transferred to the city, not back to the city. And the city would like to acquire these properties from the successor agency at no cost. And that's perfectly permissible under the rules and the regulations that the state established in this unwinding process of redevelopment agencies. So why is our USD involved? We're not the owner of any of these properties. We're not a partner in the development process in any way. We're not involved in the development process in any way. However, if they were sold by the successor agency, the proceeds of the sale would in part come to RUSD. In fact, RUSD is the largest taxing agency in our community, and so using Imperial Hardware as an example, we would get 42% of those sale proceeds would come to RUSD. And so what is before you are 3 compensation agreements, one for each of those properties, that would consent to the transfer from the successor agency back or to the city without fee. So the city is the owner of the property and could then negotiate some type of development agreement. You say, why would we want to do that if we're going to forego 42% in Imperial Hardware's case? And the reason is that these dollars, these sale of proceeds dollars, are treated just like any other local property tax. And if they come to RUSD, then the state aid that we receive goes down. If they don't come to RUSD, the state aid goes back. We are held completely harmless by the state. And so it's not the school agencies that have any type of adverse impact on them from agreeing to this. It would be all the other taxing agencies, most of which have already agreed to this. There are still 5, including us, on the long list of taxing of agencies that are part of these agreements that are still working through the process. But each of the educational institutions that are involved, RCOE, Moreno Valley, USD, RCC, and depending on your action tonight, yourselves, each of the educational institutions involved in this have agreed to these. And so would recommend to you the approval of the compensation agreements that are before you, consenting to the transfer of these properties from the successor agency to the city for purposes as outlined.
Mr. Fine, we have a couple questions from the board. Mrs. Albee?
I was just going to ask you why Moreno Valley Unified is on this list. These properties are all in the city of Riverside. What effect would they have on Moreno Valley?
Because Moreno Valley Unified services part of the former redevelopment agency of Riverside. So recall that our boundaries between the school districts and the cities are not contiguous, or not, yes, contiguous.
Okay.
They're not matched. Moreno Valley, for example, serves a large piece of the city of Riverside's property, although very few residents.
Got it. Okay. I was just curious.
Okay. Mr. Hunt?
Thank you. Mr. Fine, the Imperial Hardware building, don't I understand that the proposed developer on that just cut a deal with the city where he's going to buy that for $1? So what does that mean to us?
it means we'll get 42, well, actually, nothing. If we agree to the transfer of the property to the city, then the city gets that dollar, and the taxing agencies outside the city don't get anything. What it means for us on the long term, though, in that example, if the developer is successful, is to be taking a piece of property that currently, using Imperial as an example, currently has an assessed valuation on the tax rolls of 0, because it's owned by the successor agency, to $1 initially, because that's what it would be worth, but under that particular plan development would ultimately have a value of $14.7 million, of which RUSD's share would be $63,000 in ongoing annual property taxes. If the whole block, and I think Mr. Hunt, who follows this, is aware that the development is, consideration is actually beyond the Imperial Hardware building. It also includes the Gardner and Johnston's properties that make up the whole block. If the whole block is developed consistent with the plan for Imperial, the estimated assessed value rises to about $26 million, again, which in private hands, which generates property taxes. So you start to see why the state doesn't care if on the short term they have to backfill a little bit, because their share going towards education will ultimately drop over the years if we get a development that's worth $14 million or $26 million, generating to RUSD $63,000 or $112,000 a year. The state saves that on a perpetual basis. So you start to understand why they don't have any objection to the process.
What is the, thank you, Mike, that's a very clear answer. I've always found it just incredulous that they would declare the farmhouse motel, not hotel, as a historical property. What is, you say there is proposed use, reuse for that?
There is. I wouldn't, my words, if I said historical, they have historical significance. I don't know that they're historical in that they meet those standards, but it is historical from its long history in the community. There is a proposed development that not only includes that property, but also the property out to Iowa for residential development that I think the development is still under consideration that would be in support of student housing and other UCR-related activities, but not by the university, it's by a private developer.
Well, I would move to approve, unless there's more questions. Move to approve the Deputy Superintendent's proposal here relating to the redevelopment and compensation agreements.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Hunt and a second by Mrs. Alavi to approve that compensation agreement. Please vote. Item carries. Thank you, Mr. Fine. Are you up next again for our item E3? Joint use agreement, the former Riverside Golf Course.
Thank you. Item E3 is an exciting example of when partners in our community come together. In this case, the city and RUSD, really facilitated by Debbie Guthrie with the Riverside Sports Commission and Debbie sitting in the back corner there, but also by our coaches, specifically track and cross-country coaches, not only from RUSD, but from some of our peers around us. As the board's aware, the former Riverside Golf Course on North Main and North Orange at Columbia is no longer a golf course and is the subject of continuing development considerations. But in the meantime, we are proposing for you tonight a joint use agreement between the city and RUSD. And although RUSD would not be the single user, all other users basically would work through RUSD because the city really just wants one partner to kind of have to deal with. A 3-year agreement with roughly 6 to 7 uses this fall, escalating up to 10 to 12 uses in each of 15, fall of 15 and fall of 16, specifically to support cross-country needs, running course needs of cross-country. And in 15 and 16, to even partner with the CIF to hold their finals here in Southern California, which for, I think, 30 plus years have been at Mount San Antonio College, but because the college is under construction, has quite a bit of construction going on. The course won't be available there, so this would be that short-term substitute. There is no lease or rental costs. It is a joint use. The district would schedule our use on a master schedule with the city, very similar to what the city does with us with Ramona Stadium. We would provide sanitation needs on the site, trash, portable restrooms during the cross-country season. I think most of you are certainly familiar with the area. This particular map, North Main's across the top, Columbia on an angle here on my left, and North Orange there towards the bottom. The entryway and the parking area would be immediately adjacent to City Fire Station number 6, and we have plotted, our coaches have plotted a course across this. Really, Debbie and the Sports Commission have arranged for volunteers to grade the course and to deal with any hazards by way of dead trees before we would be involved in the project. And that work is pending your approval tonight and then the City Council's approval on the 9th. And would recommend this joint use agreement for a period of 3 years to you tonight. And I know that Debbie and others would be happy to answer any detailed questions beyond the actual agreement itself.
Okay, we do have a couple questions. Mr. Hunt.
I commend you, Mike, and the Sports Commission and all for working in this. I would like to hear, because we don't get to see him too often, and I admire him a lot, I'd like to hear from Coach Corona, what he thinks about this opportunity. Maybe let us know too, Coach, where does King run now? Where does Polly run now? I mean, and very pleased to see this.
Well, thanks, Mr. Hunt. I appreciate it. I don't know why you'd want to see me on a regular basis, but anyway, members of the board, Dr. Hanson, I've become involved with this. I need to introduce the man that's really been spearheading this, Coach Will Jacobsmeyer, a good friend of mine is in the back there. Very successful coach at La Sierra High School in cross country, and it was his brainchild. And between him and Debbie and the efforts of Mr. Fine, we've been able to get this far. There are very few places where cross country teams can run in Riverside anymore, it's usually we're running on campus, trying to figure out something to do on campuses. There's been a lot of work and working in area parks, getting in, like on Dolca, we had the Big 8 finals about 3 years ago. And it would just seem time with that ground not being used very often that we might be able to do something there. So keeping the kids off the streets, keeping them in a safer environment, that was part of the thought here too. So it's an opportunity for us to do something really positive for cross country in this town, and especially in conjunction with the city. And I've been really happy to be working with Debbie Guthrie. She's done a tremendous job in pushing this forward with the city. And Will's been doing a great job of organizing us coaches. And having done this kind of stuff before, he and I are old friends. So this has been, and one of the few people my wife would let me work with something like this. So anyway, that's where we are with that. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for all of us. So,
Coach, how many young men and young women do you have out for cross country?
Well, Will has 125 kids out for cross country at La Sierra, and we have about 85 at King. I know Paul, and all the cross country teams in the city are beginning to grow. It's a sport where kids, you're running against yourself. You don't have to worry about being cut so much. You're running to your own standard and those types of things. And so the sport's beginning to grow. I can't say exponentially, but it's growing across the CIF Southern Section. I can tell you that. And I think with something like this, an opportunity, not just for high schools, but we've contacted and talked to Cal Baptist a little bit about this. They're looking for a course. RCC would like a course more closer to the campus. And again, it's a really good opportunity to continue this.
What kind of notoriety do you think we'll be able to bring to Riverside, and cross country would bring the CIF championships here? I mean, it's always been at Mount Sac since I was.
Well, I've been around a lot longer than you have, Mr. Hunt. I ran there some 44 years ago. So
I did too.
Yeah. So it's been there a long time, and and we're not trying to steal Mount Sac's thunder. It's an alternate It's an alternate for other schools that. Yeah. At this point, where they're rebuilding the athletic facilities, and the course itself won't be available. And there's been talk for years about satellite courses for prelims. You know, there's 5 divisions in cross country in the CIF Southern Section. There's 576 schools, and about half of them make CIF, and it's hard. And so what the CIF cross country committee, and Will's on the committee, he can tell you more about that. They're looking at satellite places where they can have prelims, and then they'll bring the finals to Mount Sac, and you'd have less teams. As far as notoriety goes, well, you know how it goes. You've got to give it a shot first and see where it's going to go. With Debbie and Will working at it, and whatever knowledge I can throw in there, and of course, I think again with the city and the district working together, I think it can be an awful positive thing. If we've got a lot of things in place already, we're just waiting for the word, and we're going to go. So.
I know you have questions, but if you let the old La Sierra Eagle cross country make the motion to approve, I'd appreciate it.
We'll come back to you.
Okay, do that.
Eagle, just hold on there.
I'm getting old.
I won't forget. Mrs. Allaby.
I just wondered if you could tell me, how do you designate the course? What is exactly involved in your marking it?
Well, Will and I went about 6 weeks ago, and we went on the course with like a little wheel that ticks off the miles, and we measured this side to side, how wide we want it to be, and where we're going to run it.
But how will you mark it?
Well, what's going to happen, Debbie's contacted Riverside Construction, and they're going to take a grader, and they're going to go across the field with it. Now, we're lucky that Matt Pym, who's the president of Riverside Construction, he and I are old friends. And so Matt's been, and of course he works at the city all the time, and so Matt's been very helpful. In fact, we just talked today about when and where we can get started. Once we get the word, we can go.
And will the kids be will they be able to run this course once or twice or 3 times?
There's a loop that they'll run twice.
Twice, okay.
I think it's, a mile? A little under a mile? Yeah.
Wow.
So we use the entire course, but in order to fit in the mileage, they'll run one loop twice, about 3/4 of a mile, so a mile and a half.
Great. Well, no, that was very exciting. Thank you.
Questions?
Mrs. Cloud.
I just have a quick comment and question. I drive by there a lot on my way to Grand Terrace, and it is an eyesore. And I'm really glad this is a good use of partnerships. So congratulations. But my question to you is this a long-term situation? What if some developer comes and wants to buy the property and, gives the city a lot of money? What do we do then?
So the joint use agreement that's before you is for 3 years.
Okay.
And really that third year out is to ensure that we can accommodate the CIF need in 15 and in 16, because that's when Mount Sac is not available. There are termination provisions in the agreement, fairly liberal termination provisions in the agreement, so that should a development opportunity come through that would actually require some change in the configuration or use of the property, before that time, certainly notice can be given without a problem. Remember that development of something like this takes a lot of time and a lot of thought. That's discussion, not out at the property, that would lead up to something. And so a lot of work can be done on a potential development that over 3 years that never physically touches the property, other than potentially testing, soils testing, those types of things. So I think the 3 years is a very reasonable period of time.
Very good.
Mr. Hunt, did you have a question again?
Just to tell Mrs. Cloud that development company that would come by that they're known as when pigs fly, because they're not going to happen. As long as we have, and I think she's done a marvelous job for our city and has been a catalyst for bringing the high schools and competition sports to come to the city. I mean, we just saw that with the synchronized. With the chairs, okay, I'd like to ask Mrs. Guthrie if there's anything she'd like to add and share with us some of the things she's been doing, working with us, and where else we can do. Plus, Cindy Roth would get mad at me if we didn't invite her up. So.
Well, we always like to hear from Mrs.
Always like to hear from Deb.
Well, good evening, Dr. Hanson and board. I am thrilled that you're here considering this. We started working on this project in December, and it was a brainchild of Will and a couple of other coaches who said, what if, and is there a possibility that we can get this done? And, when I started really looking into it, it was public utilities, the city of Riverside, Park and Rec. There were a lot of hurdles to overcome. But in true Riverside form, we have pulled this off and come up with an agreement that I think is extremely favorable to both the district and to the uses that we want to have there. The city's happy with it, and I just think that this is one of those situations where the stars align and everybody in Riverside pulls together for the good of our students and for the good of our community. And no mention was made that if we do bring CIF prelims and or finals to Riverside, there's a tremendous economic benefit there. And we know that anytime we bring dollars into the community, it always trickles down to our schools, to everyone. So we're thrilled to be a part of this. The Sports Commission will be out there beating the bushes, bringing every competition we can here that'll generate economic activity and give the kids a chance to run. And it's in a safe environment. It's completely fenced. There's opportunities for some revenue for the cross-country programs. So it's seemed to me like just a perfect win-win situation. So we're really excited, and I thank you for considering this, and thanks to Mr. Fine for attending those meetings and showing the interest in pursuing this. So thank you.
Thank you. So now would you like to make a motion?
As a very tired old La Sierra Eagle cross-country runner, I would ask for approval and with commending Mr. Fine and our staff for working with the other districts and working with the city and the Riverside Sports Commission, item E3.
All right.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Hunt and a second by Mrs. Allaby to approve the joint use agreement. And before we vote, I would like to say thank you as well, because, this is very much a dream of mine to have more and more partnerships between the city and the school district, and I've been working on those myself, so I really appreciate it. As one who ran in the orange groves, and there were lots of them when I was on cross country, I'm glad to see we have another place here. So please vote. Thank you. That item carries. Thank you so much.
Good luck, Coach.
All right, we're at the end of our meeting already. Wow, almost a record, but not quite. We're at the end of the meeting where each of our board members gets to say a comment or two about what they've been up to and what's coming up. So I'd like to start with Mr. Lee, new father on the end. Because I haven't picked on you yet, I don't think. Since oh, no, I'm not talking about my trip. So, anything to say, Mr. You do have something big coming up, though. Next weekend, or when is it?
This weekend I do.
This weekend, where you have to carry Bob
I'm going
Stockton?
up with Bob Stockton to Bear Valley for a 40-mile endurance race.
Yay.
So hopefully I come back.
I don't know how you're doing that with a new baby at home, but mad props to you. That's pretty good.
My wife's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's true. Good. Mrs. Cloud.
Well, it's been a full and rewarding summer, but it is fun to be back in RUSD. Already back to school night took place at many schools this past week, and I went to Bryan's just to kind of see what's going on. I always like to ask the teachers if they really like core knowledge, and they always give me an excited answer, and unanimously they're excited about core knowledge and what's going on in their classrooms. And I know even those schools that aren't core knowledge would be excited, but they're especially excited because it's such a rich curricula. And I went to the County School Boards Association, Mr. Hunt and I did, and I have a couple things to report from that real briefly. We do have Masters in Governance coming out that they're facilitating that will be in these two county areas, San Bernardino and Riverside, beginning in February, I believe. I did say that I would be part of the Golden Bell validation team, so I will be looking at a literacy program around here someplace. I wanted to highlight that Jesus Holguin, who is a trustee in Reno Valley, and current vice president of the association will be the incoming president. We will get to see him inaugurated in December when we go to our meeting in San Francisco. And coming up also as a highlight, I don't know how Bill Newberry and Ben Johnson did it, but if you're familiar at all with what goes on in Sacramento, you'll know the name Dan Walters. He's a columnist in the Sacramento Bee, and he will be our guest speaker for the Riverside County School Boards Association annual fall joint meeting with Riverside County and San Bernardino County. It'll be in Reno Valley. This is just a preliminary. You will get the information over and over again. But I would urge us all to go because he's a very interesting speaker. I've heard him before. He's very fair. He can be very brutal, but he's very interesting, and he will be the keynote speaker, and that will take place October 27th. So that's the exciting things that have been going on down at this end of the table.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to go back to Mrs. Alley.
Can I add one more thing? For most of you know, Riverside County School Boards Association has an activities and events connection that anybody in the school district can access, and it gives us discounts to all the local things going on, like Knott's Scary Farm, LA County Fair. If you go on their website, which is www.recreationconnection.com. And that's a good perk for all of us who are district employees.
Thank you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, now I'm going to go to Miss Alley.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what we were speaking casually about down in closed session, and that is in the entire time I've been on the school board, I don't believe I've ever had the start of a school year be so easygoing with terms of people sending me complaint emails. In fact, I haven't had one. And referring back to Mr. Martin and I, who had many, many emails last year with regard to air conditioning, I was kind of holding my breath, not a one email about air conditioning, so I think Orrin needs a big thank you for that. And just in general, the calm and a nice opening of school this year has been really palpable to me. So I thank everybody for making it so, and I know good things have been happening because otherwise we usually hear about it. So, but it's just been really nice. Just wanted to pass along my many thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Alley. Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mrs. Luckdust. I do encourage us as a board and for Dr. Hanson and others that we attend this. Miguel was just talking about this CSBA sponsor with Dan Walters. Dan Walters was actually Gail's and my suggestion because we think more than any politician out there, he's going to give us the straight and skinny on what it means about. We know the governor's talked about putting a bond and not putting a bond, and when he would put a bond on for schools. So I encourage that we all attend, and we invite as our guest Ms. Page, Mr. Rudd, and Mr. Martin to also attend, because we know that the bond's going to be talked about, the Vergara decision will be talked about, and if you haven't heard Dan Walters before, it's very informative, and he knows what's happening in Sacramento, and will not varnish it. I also would like to ask the superintendent, and for the committee that Mrs. Alley and I serve on, we picked this up a couple of years ago, but I had a call this afternoon. We need to start talking again about the Gless property next to King. Mr. Gless's project up the street, wherever the Big Grove is, he's now making as you know, Target fell out, and he's now talking, and he doesn't want Walmart. He's now talking about some retail and doing housing up there, single family. So he may be, the call I got this afternoon, he may be more reticent now to start talking about that property. If the board will recall, that property, after the entire public hearings were held regarding the city's general plan, former Councilmember Schiavone, on the night of the hearing, and again against the rules of conduct, had that property rezoned for high-density residential. which is something that neighborhood nor this school district would want there. We're getting the calls I did get, Mrs. Alvey, and I kept saying, God, it's Kathy's school, but is about the traffic. You know, I wonder why we built a school so close to that intersection, but the traffic is bad at any school. I understand that, Dr. Lewis, but particularly there, we know this property could serve a short-term fix for that and a very long-term as we begin to talk about a GO bond on what could be done, because it's property next to our high schools, along with the little piece that Mr. Fine reminds me about there at Ramona, there on the corner, Mike, I forgot the street that is, and then the property that the Church of Latter-day Saints own across from Poly. But I would like to have us pick up the conversation with the Gless folks. I also want to commend, if I may, and just, I don't know, maybe because I'm older, maybe I have more medicine. I have never had more problems with the health plan since we changed over administrators. But I want to thank Kathy Everhart for the tremendous job she's done. I imagine she's not just done it for me. I imagine there's been a lot of concerns. Medicines that I had were approved prior, cardiac medicines I take that weren't approved, and Kathy's gotten on the phone and fought for me, and I'm sure she has done that for others. And lastly, I was leaving my office, going home to a nice quiet dinner last Tuesday night, when I got a call from Dr. Hansen, and his very quiet voice said, Tom, I think I might have screwed up. And I thought, you know, how can David Hansen screw up? And I said, okay, David. You know, he said, well, he was introduced by City Council, and if we got to tell any of us, and the rest of the City Council sort of looking around, where's the school board? So I said, well, there must be not a lot going in. I'll pop over and during general. Well, that was the night they decided to invite Marietta out to come talk about immigration. And I was going to leave after putting my card in, but I turned around, and there's Ophelia, and there's Woody, and there's Rose Mays, and they're all saying, Tom, you're going to say something, so I stuck around. But you know what came up a lot, and I was able to use it in that 3 hours, was that we are a city that has always done the right thing, and that includes several council members and the mayor. Bailey mentioned the 1965, is it, desegregation. And so my comments were to thank them on behalf of all of us here at this dais for recognizing Dr. Hansen, for welcoming him to the city. That I said, I don't know when, after 65, the city hall and the district came apart, but I'm glad they're coming back together. Certainly would have happened in 1965. I don't see Mayor Ben Lewis opening his paper the next morning and saying, oh, look, honey, the school's desegregated. Obviously, it was collaboration between the city, and I think we have a city council and Scott Barber, who's already met with, and I thanked him, our city manager has met 4 times with Dr. Hansen. I don't think any of us have met 4 times with Dr. Hansen, and that's a good thing, because he should be meeting with our city, and as Debbie Guthrie and Coach Corona and the coach from La Sierra approved, there's a lot of things that we can and we should be doing together. So thank you, Dr. Hansen, for what you've done there, and thank you, and welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Dr. Hansen, did you have anything to add, or are you okay? All right. Well, I'll just close out just a couple things. First, I wanted to thank Mr. Hunt for covering for me in my absence when I was on vacation. I apologize for missing the last meeting, but I really appreciate it. And I also, too, Mrs. Alavi, have a note here to thank all the teachers and principals and staff for, and the kids and parents, too, for making this a really smooth opening this year, and for really just as somebody with 3 kids in the district who are attending schools, not only do I hear via email, but I also get bombarded when I walk on campuses. So it's nice to see things did go very well this year. And I want to thank Dr. Hansen in large part for that. Having his really competent leadership in place with his team has been really key for that. So thank you. Also, I did want to let you know, Tom, I didn't wait around for 3 hours. I just sent an email to the city council apologizing for not being there. So, but I did, and I thanked. I just wanted to let them know that there was a miscommunication and that we weren't there, and that I was glad they had a chance to meet Dr. Hansen. So, a couple other things. I don't know if, did you all get this card? Did you each get a card, or did I just get it to all of you? Okay, so I'm going to pass this around. This is from the Earthwatch team, and these are the teachers that went to specifically up to Canada. I think this was Manitoba, to the Churchill Wildlife Management Area, and they sent a card to us. So I'm going to pass it around, but I'll just very briefly tell you that it says, "Dear Board, we spent an incredible 2 weeks at the Arctic's Edge in Churchill this summer, courtesy of Earthwatch Fellowship, sponsored by Reef. We loved every minute, learned so much. As the new school year begins, we're excited to share our experience with our students and colleagues. We feel fortunate to teach in a district that has such amazing opportunities for our personal growth. Thank you." And that was signed by that group of teachers that was at Churchill, and I won't read all their names, but I'll pass this down so you can see it. Very briefly, too, I wanted to let I just wanted to say, not only as a board member, but as a consumer of our educational system, I am now sampling all the crazy wares that our USD has to offer. So I have one child who's at Poly, who's doing a blended program of online and on campus. I have one child who's doing full-time RVS with Mr. Dietz over there, who I think you're teaching her algebra, right? Pre-calc. So I have somebody doing full-time RVS, and then I have another child at the STEM Academy. So all those different types of things, I get to sample them, so I get to see how they're working. And I really want to send out a lot of appreciation towards the Poly staff for helping the transfer so easily and helping me with my daughters get registered, and the STEM staff as well, and Dennis, your staff as well at RVS. I was like undercover boss. I was over there, nobody knew who I was, and it was fabulous because they were all really nice to me, and that was great. That's wonderful. I'm glad they didn't know who I was because I didn't have any makeup on. It was the day I got back from vacation, so it was awful. So thank you. So that was all I had to say. I think Mr. Hunt has something else to add. Mr. Hunt.
I apologize, but something that I think we all should be aware of, and with Jackie's help and with, of course, Dr. Lewis and his team's help, with the water rationing, I got the first email from a city council member that people are complaining about our kids having car washes.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, we've sold all the calendars and wrapping paper and candy and popcorn. Car washes remain a tried and true way. Through this, Tom Evans offered, and maybe we can check into it, Tom Evans with Western, that they may have a water truck which could have, and they can put up signs that have non-potable, right, Mike? Non-potable. Water. And I think it's important, and Dr. Lewis and Mike, and I forgot our young lady's name, who works with Mike Fitzsimmons, but if we are a leader in conservation, under your time in the last 10 years, we've replaced, we've put in drought resistant, we're going to do more. We probably need to get that story out. It is a frequent theme that we hear about schools and the water. So I think we need to be out in front with what has your school district been doing about the crisis. And we didn't just start now, but we started a long time ago. And to let them know what we're doing. Because the kids are going to have car washes. We got to defend them. We got to find every way we can. And I think, was it you, Gail, that found out that if they use a nozzle, it's fine, but still lots of people have nothing else to worry about other than our girls and kids having car washes. But to that point, we should be letting people know what this school district does for conservation, and the record that this staff, with Dr. Miller brought in and Mike and Dr. Lewis oversaw on our energy savings program, it's not a bad thing to crow about a little bit. So just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I'm glad you did bring that up because I'd forgotten about that through everything else. So that's important. Okay, so I want to close tonight's meeting in honor of Mr. Terry Bourne. Is that who you had, Gail? Mr. Bourne, who was a former EOC teacher for approximately 10 years, and he passed away on August 14th. And so I would like to adjourn the meeting in his honor and say welcome back again to everybody. Thank you.